Alright everyone, true socialist paradise, because it is, just like Nicaragua, or just like any other socialist country that collapses. Venezuela is having continuous problems, and the problems continue to worsen. I figured periodically it makes sense to remind people this is the true face of socialism. State-run militants that beat people down, sort of like Antifa, or on steroids. Systemic poverty, huge amounts of inequality because 99% of the population, they've achieved equality, all right? It's equality of misery. The 1% in Venezuela is Maduro, his military brass, and some bureaucrats and advisors. They eat like kings. They could eat solid gold for breakfast and it wouldn't matter. It's exactly the same story as you always get with these socialist regimes. They promise people equality and everything will be fair and will make the way easy for everyone. Everyone will have a chicken in every pot. And then pretty soon you realize that that chicken is actually made out of fucking plastic. That's the way socialism works. You know, take heed, United States. It's not a road we need to go down. I think that socialism is a scummy cult at this point in this country among people who are too dumb to realize how bad it is because they've never had to live under it. But Venezuela continues to get worse. Surprise, surprise, people flee from socialism. You see, the problem is this. You've got different kinds of people that are fleeing, and the estimate was that 1 million people would flee. Now the estimate year over year is 2 million. That is, the amount has doubled over the course of only a year. It's going to continue to rise. Professionals are fleeing because they're like, hey, you know, I have to work like, I'm a doctor, so I'm supposed to work like fucking 50 hours a week. I can't do that for a bowl of rice. It's impossible. Fuck this, I'm going to Colombia. Then you've got dissidents, people who have been protesting. They mentioned this months ago. One reason why a lot of the student protests that were so large last year began to dry up is because a large proportion of all the resistance, they fled. They said, fuck it. There's no recourse within this country. We can't directly stand up against Maduro. He's got the military and his socialist guerrilla forces. What are we supposed to do? We're just going to leave. And the other countries in the area have kept their borders open specifically because of this. They realize, hey, this is a massive humanitarian crisis. It's not going anywhere. In Brazil, the current reigning liberal governments has said basically there's no chance of closing the borders. I believe Bolsonaro has alluded to that. It would be a disaster, by the way, if they do. It'd fuck Colombia, essentially, because everyone would be fleeing there. Apparently, Venezuelans also are fleeing to places like Peru. They're not all... I'm surprised. Why the hell... I can't imagine why you would want to settle in Peru. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's like Peru's not really particularly developed. Didn't they have like an earthquake or something recently and it like shattered entire villages? Yeah, but Venezuela. The problem there is that it is true socialism. True socialism in the redistributionist sense requires a lot of central planning. The problem is that central planning inevitably fucks your state up. The government will become corrupt at a much greater rate than if it were decentralized. Once it is, what you end up with is that the economy is being planned not by people who are meritocratically chosen. They're being governed by cronyist insiders. That is, you've got a form of corporatism. It's just that you've taken the privatization out of the corporations. Still corporations, it's just now they're run by bureau heads. A lot of the effete little college kids over here in the United States don't seem to realize this fact. They don't seem to realize the basic concept that socialism, if you were to, you know, totally socialize everything, you know, nationalizing every industry and so forth, what you actually get is you still have a business economy. It's just run by people who are chosen for those positions in even less effective methods than in a corporatist society. That's like the only reason interventionist sort of corporatist societies even stay afloat. At the very least, there's some meritocracy within who's chosen to run those semi-privatized businesses, which are tied at the hip to the government, but the government doesn't directly appoint who the bureau head to oversee the businesses. In socialism, like in Maduro land, that's what you have. Therein lies the problem. Humans are corrupt. You give them an inch, then they'll take a foot. And the other problem is that Maduro just pissed off Ireland a few days ago. He nationalized a business that had been built by an Irish firm within Venezuela. If you're not willing to respect, like the Irish, Ireland is run by the far left in everything other than like gayness and abortion. Far left economically. Getting more far left socially. They have a business there, and they build a factory in Venezuela. Like, oh, these Venezuelan workers, they'll work for 50 cents a day and think that we're handing them a tub of gold. And then Maduro says, no, you can't have your business anymore either. Fuck off. Venezuela, I predict, will continue to worsen even if oil prices rise. Therein lies Venezuela's woe. Even if the oil prices rise because of the amount of debt, including debt that's been forgiven by like Europe and China variously, because of the amount of debt, the instability from nationalizing industries, and the fact that so much of the population has fled, probably mostly not to return, Venezuela is going to suffer for at least another generation under the best of circumstances. Let's imagine for a moment, hypothetical. They kick out Maduro. They entirely erase socialism. They become the most free market economy in the world. Then they would just get raped, basically, by a bunch of Western firms that would come in and exploit them. Yeah, and that's the best of outcomes. You know, they'd actually have food on their table. It'd be GMO food. But when that's the best possible outcome for your nation, despite the fact that you're sitting on the world's largest oil reserves, that's a little bit of a problem. At this point, by the way, with oil prices so low, if they're not willing to do too much exploratory drilling in areas where they know there's really easily refined oil, like Alaska or Texas or parts of Canada, they're definitely not going to make such an investment in Venezuela. Especially when you make an investment into a foreign nation, you know, you've got to understand your legal protection is relatively less. If you're invested in a country, what did Castro do when they had their so-called revolution, their coup there? When the communists took hold, what did they do? They stole all the businesses and goods from Western firms that had helped to develop Cuba. They nationalized everything. That's what Maduro's doing. How is he not a commie? People don't want to use that term. But this is real socialism. This is what we seek to avoid here in the civilized world. What the Western developed world needs to avoid is falling into the trap of thinking, hey, a few welfare programs did such wonderful things. Let's just be socialists now. They say that it's kinder, gentler socialism. It's democratic socialism. Here's what Bernie Sanders will never tell you. Venezuela is a democratically socialist country. Maduro's an elected official. He's not dictator for life. Military didn't appoint him to his post. He was elected. There's a constitution there. There's a parliament there. They've got split government and everything. They've got a court system that's capable of saying what Maduro did is not legal. It's just it's dysfunctional because it's so centrally planned that every aspect of the economy is run by Maduro's inner circle. That's socialism. That's about all. Peace out.